as we move to our next and final session for this afternoon or this evening, depending on where you're based, and that's talking about how airlines are getting back to business. So to introduce our panelists, I would like to hand over to Yael Altman from Travecor, who will kick us off.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Hi, Miri. We are waiting for Nick, but I guess we can start. Nick, can you hear us?
I can indeed. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we cannot see you. But I guess we will fix it out in the way, so let's start. So thank you very much, Daniel. Thanks for Zenner for inviting us all. This is an amazing event, and it's always nice to have these kinds of events that we are used to be in a very large and big audience, and this is definitely a new way to make our webinars and conventions small and large. So thank you very much. My name is Yael. I'm the CEO and founder of Travecor, a consulting company for the corporate travel business. We also have Miri Danai, the CEO of Cockpit Innovation. Miri, you want to introduce yourself?
So yes, hi Yael, thank you. Thank you for having me. So my name is Miri and I'm CEO of Cockpit Innovation. Cockpit Innovation is an innovation hub owned by Airlines, Gate Group, and Boeing. And what we initially do is we do corporate innovation service.
But anyway, what I'm doing is, so yes, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm Nick Bettles. I'm the commercial manager for Virgin Atlantic, based here in Israel. We've been operating to Israel now for close to a year. We started in September the 25th, 2019. We're approaching our 1-year anniversary, and it's been an incredible year. So there's a huge amount to share, I think, about learning. So certainly the latter 6 months of our operation here in Israel.
Great. It was an amazing year indeed. My first question is actually for both of you. What is the biggest adoptions that your company had to make as a result of the COVID crisis? Miri, can you start?
Sure. Yeah. So I think it was an unprecedented year, and obviously the entire industry suffered, but obviously airlines probably suffered more. So I think, for the first time we didn't fly. So the company is grounded. So Airlines didn't fly for more than 5 months. So that's a huge adoption, taking into account the entire structure of the company and the expenses. The other thing is that we kind of started adjusting, and we conducted rescue flights to various destinations. So that was unusual and unprecedented, and for the first time landed in Australia, Brazil, Costa Rica, Mexico. So that was a great and inspiring thing that could show the company maybe some new initiatives for the future and what can be conducted and done. The other thing was probably the shifting of planes to cargo. So basically, passenger planes were shifted to be able to fulfill cargo demands. I think what's interesting is that El Al was one of the first kind of to recognize the need and become a cargo player in the market, not just on flights from Tel Aviv hub, but from international different hubs. So that's probably a very, first and initial impact and results. Obviously, there are other results and other impacts that are, being taken into consideration and, changing the entire travel journey. So I think that basically today companies are preparing to the new challenges and needs and new solutions are being made. So I think that a lot has been spoken about it, touchless and about the hygiene and the rest, but maybe I'll give a different example, which relates to the food in flight. So, until today we had various meals and it was a big thing, the food that was served in the flight. But today, due to regulation, meals cannot be served in flight. Staff are restricted from interacting with the rest of the passenger, and this damages significantly the customer service and customer satisfaction. Only sealed food that is prepared in advance can be served. So nowadays we are preparing sealed food, and Gay Group, for example, are very much oriented to serve sealed food prepaid in a sufficient level. But for sure, I think that airlines will not this, or will definitely will change this restriction once it's available, as food is a very significant upside and a very significant customer service that cannot be changed forever. So we're quite confident that this is, for example, a change and an impact that currently we're handling, but confident that it's going to change in the future.
Thank you. Nick, which kind of adoption Virgin Atlantic needed to do according to the results of the COVID?
Yeah, and look, I would echo absolutely everything that Miri was just saying there in terms of the scale of and the breadth of the impact that this has really had on aviation. I mean, look, we very first kind of came into COVID-19 the very beginning of the year. In March of this year, we saw the impact hit Israel relatively early. Previous to that, it was isolated within the APAC region, so within Shanghai, Hong Kong. But really, the downturn that we saw in Q2, we actually only operated 2% of our standard flying, so it was down 98%. And that scale of a dip within aviation is just it's so difficult for any airline to see such a dramatic drop off in demand and in the operations that it really has affected all airlines alike. But actually for us, it's really the size and scale of the changes that we've had to make internally that I think is probably our largest or biggest change that we've had to make. So we in May of this year, we had to unfortunately let go over 3,000 of our staff, and only in a couple of weeks ago, we've had to announce additional cuts to that. And really, what that will mean is for us as a company of what was around 10,000 employees, we are now 50% of where we were before. So just in terms of a people number, and people for us are so important, you can really see the depth of the impact that kind of lack of demand has had for us. We've had to close one of our second largest base in London Gatwick, and we've consolidated all of our operations into London Heathrow. And that has obviously meant a very large scale in change in the operations side of things. And I know that what I really want to talk about here is the positivity of COVID-19, but I think it's worth putting it in context of, we are not over this right now. It's we know that Q4 is going to be very difficult for us. Our original forecast for the second half of this year was around 60% of the flying, and it is going to really change the way that we kind of play out, not just this year, but into 2021. And the agility that any airline has to kind of go through now and utilize is just going to be incredibly important. So it's
interesting to understand. That Miri spoke about the very clear that the hub is here based in Israel, so it's very hard to manage the lines. But Virgin is a very global company that has the roots inside Europe and outside Europe. So how can you describe? Is it different in different markets? How you deal with the crisis?
Yeah, so look, we are the keys in the name, right? It's Virgin Atlantic, and I guess that where that puts us is very much in North America. We're a British company based out of London, but 80% of our flying is into North America, and North America will absolutely be the key that for many airlines in terms of when that lane opens up into the United States. That's going to be exceptionally important for us to do sooner rather than later. The way that we've reacted in the States is that we are operating today passenger flights, but the majority of those that are going over are operating on cargo basis. And that's one way that we've had to really change the dynamic of our business. But I think that when you look at different markets, everyone is reacting the same. There's a huge amount of uncertainty as to what is happening. There's a degree of government misalignment between the United Kingdom, obviously the other end of our route, and any other nationality and destination. So there has to be kind of that real understanding between the two countries for the lanes to really open up. So Israel is not alone, I would say, in its complexity, but it's certainly one of the most challenging.
Thank you. So we talked about actually it was the situation is not good from your point of view, and now I want to move to the next question because in the corporate side, and this is something that I can definitely see in the past month, we are seeing a little bit of movement of returning. We are restarting the travel. We can see more and more companies that are trying to find out solutions to take travelers from point 1 to point 2. So let's talk about the positive. What is the benefits that these prices bring to your company? What are the benefits and the results of these prices? Miri?
Yeah, I'll start. Okay. So, we'll start with the very straightforward benefits. I think that like any crisis, it's also an opportunity for acceleration of processes that were stuck or weren't promoted properly. Obviously, digital acceleration, I mean, the airline industry is a very traditional one, very, not a quick adapter, and projects are taking longer than, plan, and, IT systems are quite heavy, and, digital projects took a long time. And I think, today, I mean, there's many projects are, it's an opportunity to accelerate them, to push them, and to move forward. So, even mentioning the very straightforward and obvious ones, for all the, COVID challenges and making everything seamless and touchless, but also, let's say, digital projects like refund, for example, credit, which is a project that usually would take a long time, requires a lot of involvement of a lot of people in the process, but nowadays, due to the fact that most of the employees are currently not in place, and due to the fact that, efforts are totally different and budgets are different, we learn that we can be more lean, more flexible, we can shorten our time to market, and we can manage digital project quite fast and have a nice delivery. So that's just an example, but I think that definitely digital projects are now, and innovation is at the front end. For example, another thing is, bringing forward, taking care of customer safety. Obviously, it was always very important in many aspects, security and etc. But obviously now, we're exploring so many solutions in terms of other factors of safety. So that's definitely another upside, and I think something is going to stay with us afterwards and not just a very short temporary change. Yeah, and if I have to imagine, I think that again, every crisis it's challenging, and obviously, as Nick mentioned, we're still there and we're still struggling, and we're probably, before the winter, which is going to be even tougher. But nevertheless, I think that, the tolerance to risks and to, considering some new models, it's going to change. For example, revenue management and predictions of demand. This is something that was managed quite conservatively and based on very well-known assumptions. Currently, the situation has changed. No way to predict so many aspects. So I think the models are going to change and new initiatives are going to be taken into account and will be implemented because there's just no other solution.
Thank you, Miri. Nick, what benefits are you from this crisis?
Yeah, I think that, to kind of, to back up exactly what Miri was saying there, I fully agree that probably one of the benefits that we've seen as a company is a change in mindset. So Miri gave some fantastic examples there about, the aviation industry isn't necessarily known for its progressive nature sometimes. And I think that in the examples that Miri you gave there are fantastic. We have had to change as a business the way that we approach anything from revenue management to the way that we deal with our suppliers and look at food, Miri was talking about earlier, to absolutely everything that we do as a business. That agile mindset, I think, is really come. It's been a really good thing to come from this. Is that okay? Look, these are unprecedented times. These are difficult times. But is there a new or is there a different way to do things? And I think that there is more appetite for us as an airline to kind of see those potential solutions, and also as an industry, certainly. So I absolutely agree with you there, Miri. I think one of the big things, though, for us that we've really noticed and has been one of those unfortunate changes that has happened from something that we've been forced to do is that when this first started, we retired our 747 aircraft and our 340 aircraft, both fantastic beasts that you will see in the sky, and if you're in Tel Aviv now, you'll still see them. Less of them in the United States, certainly, but these fantastic aircraft, but with 4 engines, so we're relatively non-environmentally friendly. And so one of the real upticks that we found from this is that by having a twin engine fleet and solely twin engine fleet with 787s, the Boeing Dreamliners, as well as the Airbus A350s, we've increased our fuel efficiency by 10%. And that's something that we were planning to do, absolutely, but within the time scale that was nowhere near within 2 or 3 months that we had to go through earlier in the year. It was more like 2 or 3 years. So that is a real unexpected upshot of this. And I think that if you indulge me on a personal aspect, I think, looking back at this crisis, I think one of the things that will be incredibly interesting when we tell our kids we lived through COVID-19 is what did we do? And I think for me personally, one of the great things of this has been to spend more time with friends not with friends obviously, but with family, and to kind of understand a little bit more about that work-life balance. I know a lot of my colleagues are feeling the same, and whilst at times it's incredibly difficult, but the crisis has led to a real kind of inward-looking analysis about how we keep our lives and our jobs and how we balance the two things together, and that for me and for a lot of my colleagues and people that work at Virgin Atlantic, that's certainly something that I think again is a positive that we can take from this.
Great. You mentioned a lot of the point of safety. From your point of view, you think that travelers can feel safe again when they travel? Is it something that's possible in the future, Miri?
So, actually, according to researchers and articles by IATA, flying itself is quite safe. If you check the amount of people that got the virus from flights themselves, it's quite low. I think that people fear from flying or traveling mainly because they're fear of being away from home if something goes wrong, if I get sick. So they're looking for a closer destination. If you can see the data of travel companies or airlines in Asia, you can see that a lot of companies have recovered from, domestic flights within the destination of their, similar destinations. So the thing is that traveling itself is safe, and it's becoming safer because we're taking all measurement that we can to make sure that the whole journey and process is going to be fine, it's going to be safe. However, there are two main challenges as I see it. So one main challenge is to make sure that the travelers understand that, flying is, as safe as going to the office or taking the public transportation. So it's our job to making sure that, the measure that we're taking and the fact that, the airplanes today have fantastic filters along with the seating structures, the masks, and all the, attempts to avoid gathering and all the rest of the journey process that is seamless and quite safe. We have to communicate it, and we have to prove that it's quite safe. This is one hand of the perception part. And the second part is probably to make sure that the entire travel journey is safe, because if the air travel is safe, but then again they reach a destination and they feel unsafe traveling and going to different attractions or going to restaurants or taking public transportation or going to the park, then, it doesn't make any sense to take the travel itself as long as we're talking about leisure. So I think that the challenge is to make sure that the comprehensive travel process and the proposition and the new offering is going to be very much in line to reassure all passengers that all measures are being taken care of and that the entire experience is safe enough and according to regulations, rules, and making sure that he's, can do his favorite activities without damaging himself.
Thank you. Nick, can you tell us if we're going to feel safe again to travel?
Yeah, it's a great question, because do you know what my this is probably away from Virgin Atlantic, and my personal opinion is that probably air travel today is probably as safest it's ever been. Safety and security is at the heart of every airline, absolutely. At Virgin Atlantic, it is our number one focus, as Miri was saying. It's always at the center of aviation, absolutely. To get our passengers, our guests from one side of the Atlantic to the other, or from one destination to another, safely and securely. But really, from the measures that have been taken from the industry and from certainly from us at Virgin Atlantic, I would say that I would have no hesitation in jumping on a flight tomorrow and actually think it's probably safer than any other mode of transport, certainly public transport. So, to jump on what kind of Miri was saying there and to kind of give you a bit of detail and colour to some of the things that we're doing. From the outset, we're actually the only airline to offer it in Israel, but we offer COVID insurance to our passengers, free of charge, absolutely complimentary to any destination that they are travelling to with us. As long as they have a Virgin Atlantic ticket, they will get insurance which covers them up to £500,000 in terms of hospitalisation costs if they contract COVID-19. And that kind of talks to Miri's point there around having that understanding that wherever you're going to be travelling, not just on the aircraft, but making sure when you get to that destination that you will be safe and secure when you get there. When we look at our operations and how we're operating, and we like to think that we're leading in this, but we know that there are a lot of other airlines out there that are doing some incredibly great things as well, is looking at the airport procedure. We very much see, by the way, our journeys or our passengers' experience as journeys. They're very much end to end. So from the minute that they book with us right the way through to when they land and get to where they need to go, that journey, every element of that is measured and trying to be understanding by us in terms of how we can improve that. And certainly from a safety perspective, looking at the airport, for example, implementing social distancing around our check-in, ensuring people check in online, having much more touchless type travel. That's certainly something that we're aiming to do now, and also looking to the technology world to be able to support in the longer term. Equally, changes to our boarding process. So instead of just boarding all passengers by cabin, boarding from the back and boarding in phases, to make sure that interaction is less, certainly with our guests. In flight, the cleaning is I think for all airlines enhanced, but certainly for us, we are enhancing our procedures in all destinations, regardless as to where that is, making sure that there are incredible levels now of checking and double checking that all elements of the aircraft are clean. I know that everyone's heard a lot about the cleaning, but I think it's very, very important to make sure that people understand that they are getting onto an aircraft that, yes, may have been flying 10, 12 hours, but actually on its return journey, it's just as clean as kind of when it came out the manufacturing plant. And you know, there's so many different elements that the airlines are looking at now. But I think where our challenge is with this is to implement these new distancing measures and to ensure passenger safety and security, but at the same time still provide those moments of kind of wonderful travel experience that I know that we're all craving right now, and to really ensure that the experience is not dampened by the fact that, you know, maybe at times there does need to be a little bit less interaction with passengers, or certainly less sort of face-to-face interaction. That's really a huge challenge for us.
Thank you, Nick. We have a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience, in the attendees, and it's also important to bring the technology side. So, Nick, what role does technology have in your company post COVID-19?
It's that's a great question, yeah. So like, one of the things I love being based here in Israel is it's a startup nation, right? There's Miri was talking about earlier. There's some fantastic entrepreneurs out there, and I know a lot of are listening in here today. And Virgin Atlantic, I think, can be described as the world's oldest startup. We're 36 years old, and I think that we still consider ourselves at times a startup company. You know, I don't know how many people know the story about how Virgin Atlantic came about, but the shortened version of it is that Richard Branson, our founder, and as many people will know, a fantastic entrepreneur in himself, was in the Caribbean. He was stuck, couldn't go home. There was another airline out there that unfortunately cancelled his trip. He called up some people at Boeing, got a plane over to the Caribbean island, put up a chalkboard, $69 one way to Gatwick, and a whole bunch of people joined him, and there you go. There's the start of Virgin Atlantic. So, you know, it takes an idea, right? And I think at the very core of who Virgin Atlantic are, it's absolutely in our DNA that innovation plays a huge part in what we do. But as I mentioned before, we have to find that balance of how do we integrate the new technologies that are out there. You know, even walking into the office today, you know, you get scanned for your temperature. You have to make sure that your hands washed, and you do that touch. You do it with the touchless function. How do we make sure that the interaction is kept to a minimum on board? How do we make sure that, you know, if in the unfortunate case that someone has COVID on an aircraft, how do we make sure that the tracing and the testing of that is completed and followed through? How do we make sure that we really minimize the risk for travel across the board? And as an airline, we have to find innovative solutions that maybe aren't our own, but we seek other people for that kind of solution. But we have to balance that with who we are, and we are an extremely kind of different company offering a different experience when you travel with us, and we have to make sure that still kind of comes through. And I think really where I would end on this one before Miri kind of takes over, just a fantastic array of innovations I'm sure that she can talk about, is, you know, for us, we're not limited by our imagination. I think that, you know, Richard has always instilled in Virgin Atlantic a sense of pushing the boundaries, pushing that limitation of what aviation, what airlines should be and should represent for the customer. And it's our call out to the people of Israel and the people, you know, in the United States listening, and all of the entrepreneurs around the world, is if you've got a great solution, you know, bring it to the airlines, bring it to us, bring it to the likes of Cockpit. There's a fantastic array of opportunity that comes out of a crisis like this. And we are actively looking for solutions in all the things that Miri and I have talked about over the last 30 minutes. So, yeah, active call out there to everybody that has an idea. There's absolutely an outlet for it.
Thank you, Nick. Miri, what about new investments in technology? Does the COVID-19 change the scope or maybe eliminate it?
So I'm just going to relate to what Nick mentioned. I totally agree, and I relate that, we are a very big favor of innovation. However, these challenging times obviously needs to kind of curate our ability to choose the very, very most relevant ones and invest the right effort into implementing the ones that have a very immediate impact. So, that's an important factor. Our ability probably to expand our research is limited, and airlines are becoming more conservative with regards to the solution that they can implement in the very early time frame. So again, I do not want to repeat many of the aspects that what we're looking for. So I'll just say that we're still looking for probably same solutions as we did before, and it's always relevant. Everything related to customer journey, everything related to revenue management models, to new revenue streams, reduction of operational costs, obviously, and to digital journey. So obviously that's always relevant. And yes, being an investor within this time frame is, you're more cautious in investing in the traditional travel companies, and it needs to be a very probably unique and innovative solution to open your mind. But we're still there, and we're still supporting our existing portfolio, and we still believe in them, and we still think that when there's there's still opportunities and there's still, potential. So I think that that's still existing, and that's always relevant. Other than that, maybe there are two more aspects that I'll relate to. One of them is, airlines currently are struggling, and they'll have to compensate, the lost revenues. They'll have to compensate the loss of business travel. That's going to recover very slowly. So definitely thinking of, dynamic and comprehensive travel packages is something that interests us. Obviously, we want to take the ownership of the entire travel journey in order to offer some unique offering, and on the other hand, compensate for some new revenue. So that's definitely very interesting. And the Cockpit, that Cockpit as Cockpit is also exploring, as mentioned, food tech opportunities. So that's very much relevant. I think that the focus from air travel is shifted a little bit to adjust to the new reality, and food tech is becoming relevant for the travel industry and, as a very interesting scale in other industries as well. So definitely all aspects related to food, to culinary, to food waste, to food safety, to packaging, to delivery. So that's very relevant for us currently.
Thank you. So let's expand our mind a little bit and maybe look for the future. What is your vision for the future? After the crisis, what will be in the travel industry? What is your vision? Miri?
Okay, sure, I'll start. So I think that, from a law perspective, I think that the most important thing would be probably customer experience, customer confidence, and customer service, while using, the most advanced tech that is possible. For example, using the very new and most modern aircraft, such as Boeing 787, which are more, on one hand, sustainable and can provide the best customer experience. Obviously, consolidation and efficiency and flexibility, and becoming a company that can support all the, threats on one hand, and reassuring a new positive opportunities. One of the things that comes to my mind is, the airline industry is a very conservative airline on one hand, but is also struggling with very conservative regulations. So many initiatives, especially in the innovation arena, but nevertheless in all the other aspects, are, struggling for a starting point due to very old-fashioned regulation. So I do hope that maybe this crisis can be also an opportunity to change up some of those regulations to allow some new services and to allow some new initiatives to be offered to customers. as of, food initiatives and new food that can be served in aircraft, and to other services that can be conducted end-to-end. So that's definitely a potential, and hopefully we can change that challenge as well. So that's from that perspective of the vision. And as for Cockpit, so we do obviously see our vision as keeping our portfolio companies grow and scale and supporting them and seeing them succeeding and executing their solution with various potential customers, and expanding our investment into more diverse areas.
Great. Nick, I know that we all kind of want to erase 2020, but what is your vision for the future?
I love that, Yael. I think even after this week, for those of you who are listening in Israel, it's an incredibly difficult time over here at the moment, and I think for aviation it continues to challenge. So the sooner that you can get that eraser out, Yael, the better, please. Because if it could be January the 1st tomorrow, that would be wonderful if you could make that happen. But look, I think in all seriousness, for us, our vision and how we see ourselves is unchanged, which is unusual to say in times of a crisis. I know that sometimes it's an opportunity to refresh viewpoints and kind of change the way we see things. But for us, our vision is we want to be the most loved travel company. And that's globally. A slightly lofty aim, I appreciate, but that was our pre-COVID vision, and it remains our post-COVID vision. And unfortunately, the way that the crisis has played out for Virgin Atlantic, we've been through an incredibly tough time. The solvent recapitalisation of the business was incredibly important, £1.2 billion of reinvestment into the company to ensure its survival and long-term sustainability, and the fact that we are still able to keep flying was essentially important. But we know that throughout that process there was a number of different things, and I'm very happy to be transparent and honest about these things. Is that the refunds has been continually mentioned as an area where we have fallen behind our own expectations and certainly our customer expectations, as well as the challenges that we've had operationally in terms of cancelling and not being back in the market. So the ambition is there, the vision is still there to be the most loved travel company, but we know that now there is a huge amount of distance to go to be able to win back our customers who love us and who have supported us in the past. And there's going to be a long way to go in convincing new travellers that it is safe to talk about, like Miri was talking about earlier, and we had that conversation in terms of ensuring that they are comfortable to fly and that they absolutely want to fly with Virgin Atlantic. So the vision hasn't changed. I think that we've got a long way to go to be able to secure that. And for us, that very much looks like restarting our network. And we are fortunate enough to be traveling to a number of destinations now, Tel Aviv being one of them. But as new destinations open up, and as hopefully the United States does in a matter of months, hopefully, we were able to see more travel on our existing network. And I think that you'll see airlines looking for new opportunities, new markets to travel to that we maybe haven't considered or weren't viable in the past. For example, we've announced Pakistan from London, and that's both Lahore and Islamabad. And there are a number of new routes and destinations I think that are going to be interesting, especially as Miri was saying earlier, where the business travel may be a little bit slow to come back. It's where is that travel demand? Where are our travellers wanting to go to? And we see Pakistan as a fantastic opportunity for us out of the UK. So I think that restarting the network and finding those new locations for us to fly to where there is a demand is going to be essential. And I referenced this throughout, but I'm dying to travel again. Right? I was locked down in London for a long period of time. I came back to Israel, which was wonderful, but a very short leg and not great, and not the experience that I was used to, certainly. And I'm absolutely dying to travel again. I think everybody listening is. It's been so difficult for us to be in our own houses and then to be allowed out into the city that we live in and then explore the wonderful countries that we all live in. But we're all absolutely desperate to get back on board that plane again. And for us, it's about creating those magic moments when people do start to fly again. It's about capturing that imagination and looking out the window and, you know, you're 35,000 miles up in the air or whatever you are and looking down at the clouds and thinking, yeah, okay, we're back here. This is exciting. And that's really what we're in the business of doing is ensuring that customers have a wonderful experience. And I know Miri shares those thoughts as well, she mentioned earlier, and I think that's what all airline companies are looking to do. So, you know, the vision is there. We are actively looking for the governments to construct a framework, a viable framework for travel, and, you know, we are ready to start serving our customers and passengers once again.
Great, thank you. And we definitely reach our TLC, our time limit. So I want to thank you both. Daniel?
Yes, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us for this last panel. It was really fascinating to hear insights from travel providers who are at the heart of the industry. So my thank you to you, Yael, Miri, and Nick, who we couldn't see, but we believe was there nonetheless. I'm sure a lot of people in the startup world can always identify with the scrappy entrepreneurial beginnings of Virgin Atlantic. So on that note, I would like to thank everyone who attended today's conference. It was absolute pleasure hosting all of you. We're pleased to say that we had hundreds of participants from 25 countries, and we will be putting up recordings for those of you who would like to revisit this or send links later on. And for those of you for whom it's evening, have a good night, and for those of you it's afternoon, have a great day. And we really look forward to hosting all of you again sometime soon.